Hello, welcome to the Consulting Psychologists Beyond the Session.
Dun,
My
dun.
name is Dr.s Leavell, and I am excited to be here with you today with my esteemed colleague.
Hello, Dr. Marshall Bewley. So happy to be here and be in this conversation today.
So we are your two consulting psychologists, and we are coming together today and in this podcast for however long it goes on for, because we grad school teaches us what to do in session mostly, and what we have come to appreciate is that it doesn't necessarily give us a lot of insight into how to maintain those sessions and what's going on beyond the session, which is where clinical consultation needs the most focus. And we've been consulting together for a long time, longer as we think about it than even just the onset of this podcast or our current version of consultation group. We've been consulting together since approximately 2012. I don't know if I just put that together, so
Yeah.
wanted to put that out there. But and so we are coming together to give you the same resources that we've been to each other for a while. So with that being said, Dr. Bewley, tell us who you are.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that the Beatles Come Together is playing in my mind for, on repeat. But yeah, I'm pumped to be here, and I am a licensed counseling psychologist located in Denton, Texas. I have a private practice full-time for 5 years. I've been in private practice for about 10 years, not full-time, but yeah, I'm super excited to talk more about how our practices look. And I'm a one-man show, so my practice is very small, and I like to kind of keep it that way in terms of I do individual therapy. Uh, I've done group therapy. I primarily stick to the therapy aspect of private practice.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And my name is Dr. Kari Leavell. I am also a licensed counseling psychologist, and I am currently in a group practice and called Grapevine Psychology in the Christmas capital of Texas, Grapevine, Texas. And I have a team of 4 therapists that work with me, and we are trying to begin the change of all the folks in North Texas and beyond. We are an insurance-based practice out of a value for access to care. And I have been in private practice for 10 years this year, full-time for 9. And it was never something I thought that I was going to pursue. It was never a goal of mine. I thought that I had my dream job in college mental health, doing outreach to the campus community, and I love that job. And something changed. And I think that one of the things that we hope to do with you today and through this podcast is to show you how our careers as therapists and psychologists have the opportunity to evolve. And I know that I'm very thankful that I've been able to see those options and take those options for myself.
Yeah, love it. And we're going to talk a lot about beyond the session because, to your point, when you're in private practice, sometimes you have, or when you're in your clinical practice, wherever you are, you can have all these experiences throughout your day, and then you leave and you're like, what do I do with these? So we'll talk more about that as well.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that brought us to this point of podcasting to you today is that 5 years ago, in October of 2020, Marshall and I started a private practice consultation group. And before I go any further on that, I want to say that we're talking about beyond the session, and that applies to anybody practicing therapy in any setting. It's not just about private practice. That just happens to be the forums that we're coming from. But this can apply to anybody in all kinds of settings, whether you're in a prison setting or a VA or in an agency job where you're exploring and wanting some perspectives that may be different from the people that you're working with, or maybe the people that maybe you're not working with anybody and you need that from someone. Well, here we are for you. And so in October of 2020, we came together to start a consultation group because 2020, y'all, I don't think I need to say much more. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It was weird. It was lonely. It was isolating, and it was confusing. It was a confusing time for all of us. And then it was like with a mode of uncertainty around it. Okay. And so we came together and we have had a very successful, long-term, committed consultation group since that time. And we thought, well, how can we expand and give this to more folks? So that's one of the things, one of the big things that brought us together. I also say we've been consulting together well before 2020 because we worked together at the same campus counseling center since 2012. And that's we've been acquainted for quite some time. And I think that also makes us it gives us a sense of comfort with one another, trust in one another, and the ability to maybe disagree and challenge one another as we need to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I remember when I started my private practice full time, I was leaving an agency where there was a lot of consultation, and I'm thinking like, how, who and how am I going to consult? And there was some freedom in having my own decision making in that. And then when we talked, it was really exciting. And there's one study out there that looks at peer consultation, and I think it shows that it was a national survey of psychologists, and it found that only about a fourth in private practice, at least, belonged to a consultation group, even though about 2/3 expressed interest in joining one. And I know for me, I wanted to be in the percentage that was part of the consultation group. So,
I mean, if it's an us versus them, you definitely want to be on the better side, right?
yes, absolutely.
I kid. Anyway, one out of 4 people are in a consultation group. That's wild.
Well,
25%.
Yeah.
It's wild. Let me say, I spell wild SCARY.
I can't do a quick spelling, so what is this?
It's scary to think that only 25% of therapists are in a consultation group of any sort, or maybe one of their choosing. Maybe, maybe they're in some, maybe they don't want to be in them.
Well, especially post-pandemic, where most of our practices are virtual, or you're in isolation at a different level. It's like, that is SCARY. The isolation that has come with the evolution of telehealth and practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sidebar is that I think we all got a little weirder during the pandemic, and those of us willing to admit it, because of the isolation, right? I mean, we lose our social skills got dulled. I think, forgot how to interact in some ways, and so even 5 years later, I think there is still a kind of a process of getting back to a pre-pandemic way of functioning, kind of across the country or world. And so I know that whenever we were coming together in that October time of 2020, there was this eagerness to be amongst people again. And so, I think that my skills are sharpened back up. I don't think that I am the person I was before the pandemic. And I think that's for both better and worse. And that's just the natural evolution of who we are as people, who we are as psychologists and therapists. And I think maybe even a little bit of a unexpected foreshadowing of what I hope this podcast is, that it is something that maintains an evolutionary and constantly developing vibe where, we've talked a lot about what do we want this podcast to be. And I think we are both on this page of, maybe we don't have to know what it's going to be. Maybe we let it evolve. And whether that is a longer podcast that people enjoy our banter, or whether it's shorter snippets of topic-based content that people can easily search in in a catalog on our channel. I don't know, but I'm certainly very open and excited about what our community says that they want more of or less of, but be nice when you do it.
Absolutely. Well, and if you're watching this on our YouTube link, you might see some muting and unmuting, and part of telehealth world is sometimes working from home, and my pugs are, want to be part of the conversation. So if you hear some tapping, that's what the ambiance is. But I want to hit you with a little bit more research. So in terms of self-awareness regarding the need for consultation, there's some research out there that shows that psychologists, in particular, the study was on psychologists, may lack self-awareness for the need to consult. And we can be vulnerable to cognitive biases, and psychologists tend to rely more on personal clinical experience versus evidence-based research or collegial advice and treatment. So a lot to say that we need to be sure that we do consult to ensure that we're giving best care and kind of widening our perspective. And sometimes we can get narrow focus, so consulting helps bring in a different lens that maybe you're willing or unwilling to look at.
Mm. Wow. I think if you ask any psychologist or therapist about consultation, you're going to hear the answer to the effect of, the minute you stop asking other people about their perspectives on things, or the minute that you think you know everything, is the exact moment that you are like failing to be a lifelong learner. But going back to that first statistic that you brought in, only 25% of people are actually honoring that discrepancy, right? I think we can, especially after something like a pandemic, getting in our silos, like you mentioned earlier, that is such a risk to, and a disservice to the people that we serve and to our field. So that is definitely scary. And I will say that I'm sure this podcast will bring it out, but I know in our consultation group, there's been a lot of vulnerability and this navigation in my mind of what's going on in my head when I hear someone say something discrepant from me, or maybe even kind of tell me they don't agree about how much of a failure I am, or about, what a terrible therapist I am. And the thing is consultation isn't about that. And I think we all bring in some maybe negative experiences of supervision through our training, that may kind of strum that chord of self-questioning or self-doubt. Solution to self-doubt is not ego, right? The solution to self-doubt is continuing to talk about the doubt. And so part of what I hope what happens beyond the session here is that we talk about our doubt, we model talking about self-doubt, and we model how to support each other without enabling each other, right?
Mhm.
And maybe if we, part of our community sends in their questions or sends in what they would like to know more about or what they would like to hear from us about, and then we can model that vulnerability for them, so that, and I think even submitting questions would be a good example of modeling vulnerability. So we do hope that this community kind of becomes sustaining in that way.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, sometimes I think our consultation meeting, our group it's about like, how was our week, and how are we getting through the week, or what struggles did you have? And there was a systematic review that looked at like up to 30 papers, and they found that the most commonly cited dimension of burnout in applied psychologists was emotional exhaustion. So if you think about, not only does the telehealth allow us to see more people and see people in rural spaces, which is great, but we have a higher caseload, we have more intensity, and people are struggling. So then you get done with your week, and what do you do with that? I think a consultation group at least allows you to have some support in processing
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm. Whenever I know I'm not the only one that feels like I got beat up that week emotionally with what's going on kind of sociopolitically or whatever it may be, that it's like it relieves the pressure of that building self-doubt or lacking confidence or fatigue, right? Even fatigue alone can be misinterpreted because we are people. And
Yeah,
so am I tired or am I bad at this?
yeah,
And man, that's a dangerous question because you're probably just tired. But if we don't hear it from somebody else that we're not alone in that, then we can, and maybe it is us sometimes, but more often than not, it's likely needing that community to to hold that space for us. So I love that. I
It's
love that.
those group therapeutic factors of like, you know, cohesion, universality that make a difference. And when you say, you know, I felt like an imposter this week and I feel good inside, that's not because I want you to feel that pain, but it lights up my own feelings of an imposter. And my emotional exhaustion's a little bit less intense because I know that I'm not alone in it.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you have a consultation group or you don't, or you're hoping for that, hopefully this can at least be a space where you feel a little bit of like, hey, those two people get it as well.
Yeah. Oh, you're not watching right now, but those of you who may be, I have this piece of paper that has become to be my little anthem on my desk with a heart, with a like a heart exclamation point. And whenever I feel real moved, I need to show it. So that's what I just showed.
Heart.
Heart. Okay, so we talked a bit about what brought us together. We described generally who we are and what our kind of roles in our careers are. We've talked about what this podcast is about and what our intention is for it. And we've talked a little bit about the stats, the startling stats of how many of us, of our brethren, don't do this, and the ethics of how consultation, professional consultation, makes our job sustainable, and how, I'll add to that, well, no, I won't add to it because I just lost my train of thought. But we will continue to weave the ethics of consultation in. And while this may be asynchronous for everybody but you and me, Marshall, I do think that there's being immersed in consultative content is still valid for not being in that 75% of people who aren't engaging it. So kudos to you for tuning in. And we hope that you are willing to follow us and let us be a part of your weeks as you continue to be an ethical, evidence-based, supported therapist in the world.
Yep. We're gonna make your experience beyond the session hopefully a little bit smoother and kinder to yourself.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.